This is for educational use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardanes, to use this as an educational material.
So good day guys, I'm Decadet Archaga and we're gonna talk about the serious topic about the global divides, the North and the South. So our goal for today's topic guys is to define the term of the Global South, differentiate the Global South from the Third World, and number 3, analyze how a new conception of global from relations emerged the experience of Latin countries. So we're gonna talk about the Global South. So what is the Global South all about? So Global South includes less developed or developing countries, mostly in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and some parts of Oceania. And they labels the North and South were they created to show differences in wealth, power, and development, not exact at map location or geographical. For example, Australia is geographically in the South Hemisphere, but it is considered part of the global North because it is highly developed. So, in simple terms, Global South is a term to describe a poor or developing countries based on their economic and political situations and their position on the map.
Good day everyone, I am Decadet Samson, and in continuation with Decadet Archaga, I will define what is Global North. The Global North refers to the developed and wealthier countries in the world, such as those North America, Europe, South Korea, and Australia and New Zealand. These nations are highly industrialized, with advanced technology, strong economies, and higher living standards, and better healthcare and education. They also have the greater influence in the global affairs. For example, during COVID-19 pandemic, Global North countries were the first to secure the most vaccine while poorer nations waited. Another example is climate change talks about where these countries often lead and discussion and provided funding but also criticized for being the biggest polluters in the past. In short, the Global North represents the power of nations that enjoy prosperity while also shaping decisions that affect the entire world.
Good day everyone, I'm Decadet Gaviola and I'll be discussing the global divide and how it developed. The global divide refers to the huge gap in wealth, resources, and political power between nations, often described as the global North and the global South. But this divide didn't just appear, and it developed over time. A major cause was colonialism. Powerful nations in Europe controlled much of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Colonies were used for raw materials and cheap labor while the colonizers built industries and wealth. This left many colonies underdeveloped and creating an even starting point. Even after independence, the gap control continued through unequal economic structures. Many global South countries became dependent on exporting raw goods, while the global North advanced in technology, finance, and industry. As a result, the North grew richer and more influential, while the South faced ongoing poverty, debt, and weaker global power. In short, the global divide developed through history and continues to shape inequality today. Thank you.
The global divide, the North and South divide, a socio-economic and political division that separates wealthier and industrialized nations, the global North, from poorer, less developed nations, the global South. It is not strictly geographical. Example is Australia is in southern hemisphere but belongs to the global North, while India is in northern hemisphere and is considered part of the global South. It represents disparities in economic wealth, the rich versus poor. The global North the developed nations holds a majority of the world's wealth, while Global South, developing nations, faces lower incomes and greater poverty. Next is technology and knowledge, innovators versus dependence. The North dominates innovation and technology, making the South technologically dependent. The last is global power and influence, decision makers versus marginalized. The North holds dominant positions in international institutions, giving it a greater influence over global affairs, while South is often marginalized.
Let's begin with the Global South. The Global South refers to the countries that are less economically developed. Many of these countries are located in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. They are generally characterized by lower income per capita, higher level of poverty and inequality, dependence on agriculture and raw materials, vulnerability to global economic fluctuation, and a historical background linked to colonialism and exploitation, which left long-lasting effects on their economy and politics. Thank you, and that's conclude my report.
Good day, everyone. Today we will talk about the difference about the Third World and the Global South, and how Latin American experiences help shape a new conception of global relations. So the term Third World first appeared during the Cold War. It was used to describe countries that were not aligned either the United States or the Soviet Union. However, this label carried negative meanings as it often reduced these nations to images of poverty, instability, and underdevelopment. So over the time, new term emerged, the Global South. Unlike the Third World, this concept is more empowering and focuses on the shared history of colonialism, inequality, and the struggles for independence. Most importantly, it highlights that these countries are not passive, but active participants in shaping the global affairs. So Latin America played a big role in this shift. Thinkers from the region developed independency theory, which argued that underdevelopment was not caused by internal weakness but an unequal global economic structures. So for example, countries like Brazil and Argentina export cheap raw materials but had to import expensive finished goods from richer nations. This cycle kept them independent and limited their growth. By exposing this imbalance, Latin American showed that global equality was structural, not natural. Because of these efforts, the narrative changed. Instead of being seen only as poor or behind the Global South, it's now understood as a community of nations with solidarity, resilience, and agency in the international system. Thank you, and that's all.
Hi everyone, today I want to talk about something that really shaped how we understand the world's power dynamics. And it didn't came from the usual places. We're diving into how Latin American experiences gives us a game-changing idea called dependency theory. It challenged the old belief that every country just needed to catch up to the developed world. Instead, this theory argued something far more radical, that the global system itself is designed to keep some nation wealthy while the others remain underdeveloped. Think of it like a core of rich countries benefiting directly from resources, labors, and markets of a periphery. That's us in many ways though. Here in Global South, it's not about being behind, it's about being in a system where the rules are skewed. This perspective, championed by brilliant minds like Raul Prebisch and Fernando Henrique Cardoso, really flipped the script. It shows us the historical legacies like the colonialism and economic exploitation aren't just in the past. They actively shape our present global relations for countries like the Philippines and many in Latin America. This means our progress is often tied to and sometimes limited by the economic needs of the global power. It's a powerful realization that forces us to look beyond simple solutions and understand the deeper structural inequalities at play. It's a crucial lens for understanding our own place in the world today.
This perspective, developed by scholars like Raul Prebisch and Fernando Henrique Cardoso, reframed international relations to focus on systematic inequalities and power imbalances. It highlights how historical legacies continue to influence the global economy, giving rise to a critical Global South viewpoint that now challenges dominant international narratives. Dependency theory, developed by thinkers like Raul Prebisch and Fernando Henrique Cardoso, shifted the study of international relations by emphasizing structural inequalities, interactions as fair competition. It argued that wealthy countries maintain their dominance by exploiting poorer ones, keeping them dependent and underdeveloped. This perspective also stressed the importance of history, showing how colonialism and past economic systems continue to shape the global economy today. As a result, it gave rise to a Global South viewpoint that questions the challenges the dominant narratives promoted by powerful countries in the global North.
The global divide between the North and the South highlights the persistent inequalities in wealth development and access to opportunities, while the global North is generally characterized by economic strength, technological advancement, and higher living standards. The global South continues to face challenges such as poverty, limited industrialization, and dependence on external power. However, this division is not absolute, as emerging economies in the South are reshaping global dynamics. Closing the gap requires cooperation, fair trade, sustainable development, and shared responsibility to build a more balanced and inclusive world.